Welcome back to the Dim Eye Show for episode 2. I'm joined by the powerful Professor P. Please introduce yourself.
Oh, hello everyone. I am Professor P, Natasha Palumbo, and I am so stoked because you have this high energy like me out there, and I'm just super excited to be here. So yeah, I'm a college professor, stingers up. I'm a double alum here at Sac State, and I just got hired at Grossmont, so I'm heading down south to teach at Grossmont College. I'm going to take over Southern California. Thank you very much.
She will.
Yes, I will, because I've taught at all the colleges around. I'm an entrepreneur. I've been an entrepreneur for 22 years this July. Woo, woo. I own a legal business. So a lot of people don't really know what my actual business is, but I own a legal processing medical records business. And I like do serves. So I serve people, but it's medical. Like we're looking to help people with their disability and workers' comp, things like that. So that's one of my businesses. I'm a 5-time published author. I'm actually writing a 6th book right now in collaboration.
Big 6.
Yes, so I'm super stoked about that. And business consultant, coach, podcaster, speaker. I don't tell everybody all the things I do because they think I'm not superhuman. I mean, not human. I'm superhuman for sure. But yes, definitely passionate, love, very multidimensional. You know, some people can't be multidimensional. I am, and that's just how I roll. So I'm excited to be here today.
I like that.
Yeah.
Super excited to have you here.
Thanks.
So author. I remember in one of your classes, you have textbooks. Or most of your books textbooks, or are the other books too?
So I have 5 books for entrepreneurship, and I do use them as textbooks.
Oh, okay.
I do, but they're actually also used in programs, entrepreneurship programs. My last batch, I sold a huge batch to agricultural in Colorado. So farmers markets, farmers, restaurants, so all like food industry type deal. So they bought a big batch. They bought all my books actually, and my empowerment book. So they're used. People buy them just, they want to learn business. They want to, right? So my books are very unique. They're narratives, so they tell my story, but they also then wrap in principles and activities. They tell you what to do, right? But they're told from a different angle. So, my students actually, I love my students, which you know, and if you guys don't know that, I love all my stars. Okay, that's why I have a star today. And so when I was first teaching entrepreneurship, I was like, I hate these books. Oh, and that I will fight McGraw, right? So everybody calls me the McGraw killer now, it's hilarious. But so I was disappointed, and I was like, man, I really what do you guys think? They're like, Professor, you should write your own book. Like, why have you not written your book? And I was like, okay, so I actually worked with my students. I asked them, what do you think it should be priced at? Tell me some things, and I was including them along the way as I was writing, and I was keeping them in the journey, and they were like, yeah, price it like this, do that. So they are half textbook, half books that you can just pick up for leisure, read, help you. And then my empowerment book is like a self-help type book. Gotcha. So it is for those who, I have that beautiful list of acclimates that I told you about, but I do have a very tragic backstory. I was abused for a very long time. I've been on my own since I was 16 years of age. I have faced, most every inhumane suffering type of abuse there is known to man, and lived to tell the story, right? In a place and position of power, right? It was not my demise, right? And so I have my principles that I share, and then I share activities, and it's a guide to help people specifically, mainly like anybody can get it. I think I might have even gifted your class at the end with a free version of it, because I know I do that sometimes, and I'm pretty sure I did right before I ended the semester. But it's just principles to kind of help you overcome, and my life is a living example of what it looks like to have so much hit you and come at you, but that doesn't have to stop you. Regardless the hand you're dealt, you still can play a winning hand, right? So it's been predominantly used for, I give it to a lot of women's shelters. I actually just give that book. That one is kind of what I would call my loss leader in pricing, right? It's one that goes ahead and it takes the loss because it leads others too, right? So it's been a gift to women's shelters, and the book I'm currently writing right now is a youth empowerment for youth girls.
Okay. I see you do some work with youths, right?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, so I actually today am kicking off. Today is such a full day, okay? So this is how much you have to know I love my stuff right here. Because I've got the podcast. My daughter gets out of school today. She's currently swimming at the pool because that's what they're doing last day. My son and I are getting ready to sell my boat because, of course, I can't take my little boat to the big ocean. It's not San Diego. It's river ready. If you need a boat and it doesn't sell today, hit me up. Anyways, it's beautiful, right? Selling the boat, picking up like mounds of ice cream for the ice cream social because we're kicking off the Summer Girls program today.
Oh, okay.
So I work at Rancho. It's a grant, so I'm a grant writer. Again, I don't tell everybody everything because you won't believe it. But so another thing I do is I write and manage grants. So for the last 3 years, we've won a grant through Rancho to help the at-risk youth. So I love anyone that society has deemed unimportant, right, and are at risk. It's totally up my lane. So I get to pour in and invest in them, and they're young girls between 12 and 17. I got some that are like 18, right? They're kind of, but they still are there because you know they need that. I mean, people need each other, so it's a lot of support. And we have 4 pop-up events. So we've got the ice cream. We're gonna take them bowling. We're gonna do escape room. We're going to go see In and Out, Inside Out too, because they're young girls and they got and it's gonna and they're gonna have a whole little powwow discussion about the movie. We have a 4-part workshop which covers like self-esteem and emotional intelligence, conflict and accountability and advocacy, really teaching youth how to advocate and have a voice for themselves, but respectfully, right? Like, I think a lot of them want to snap off instead of being smart off, right? Like allowing them to present themselves in a way that they can advocate for themselves, and hygiene. And then we have an annual conference. And that one we just blow it out. Career, we bring guest speakers. They're gonna get a ton of supplies for school when they get ready to go back. So it's just really pouring and investing in them. A lot of these youth, they don't even eat. Some people don't even think about that, but especially in the summer when there's not school where they have that lunch every day. So our youth are we buy all this extra food so that they can walk home with it and they can feed their siblings and they can share, or they can have their own little personal snacks without the sibling taking it, right? So we make sure that we cater to them in such a way that it is life-changing, and all of them are always like, wow, when I get older I want to do that. That's the impact, right? So that 6th book is going to then become part of the program for She Builds the Empowered Life. And
that's the name of the series?
So that's the name of the new book coming, She Builds the Empowered Life, Girl Power. It is a trilogy of sort. There's 3 of us writing it. My Auntie Teal, I call her Auntie Teal. She actually worked at Sac State, and she was very instrumental in my life from being in Florida and having been beaten basically damn near to death. And she called me and she was like, we're gonna get you to California, we're gonna educate you, I'm your black auntie and you about to change lives. Like, that's what she said to me. Like, she spoke this over my life, right? And I was like, okay, right? And I got here and I got to meet her. She is an amazing person, and so she's writing the Girl Power part. She's had this Girl Power program. Tammy Van, she has been a partner with me for a long time. She started as my client. She does the She Builds, which is supporting her endeavors, and then Empowered Life, right? So we're coming together and we're creating this journal type, it's book, but it's like activity based too. So everything I write as a leader is activity based, right? I want you to go and do, right? It's one thing to read it, but if you got to go put it in action,
100%.
right? So so that's kind of where it is right now with the girls. That kicks off today, and then like our outline for our book is actually due tomorrow, right? So I've got to piece that together because I manage a lot of these parts, you know. So that's it.
Very impressive.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking the time to be here.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
And I'm here, right? And this is fire. So,
That's something you said about like reading. I guess I took it as reading. I used to read a lot of self-help books, but I feel like I'd get all this knowledge and then I wouldn't know how to implement it in my life. So I think having the activities is really a good idea, especially when it comes to like philosophy. Like sometimes it's hard to connect like ideas to your life. You know, and like good philosophy helps you do that. You know, the most popular people are the ones who it's so vague that anyone can put their own like life into it, you know? So I think that's really
absolutely cool. You have to put your own spin on it. You know, one of the first activities we're going to do with the girls in the workshop is just take their thumbprint. And I don't know if you remember me being like, hey, show me your thumbprint, but most of my stars know I'm like, show me your thumbprint, because that's unique. Nobody has your thumbprint. This is how we're recognized, our thumbprint and our dental, right? Like, let me see that, right? And we're gonna take the thumbprints, and then you get to draw a character face on it and decorate your background. Then we're gonna put this up and just show how unique we really are, right? So success is not a secret, everyone, it is a system. And you go out and you learn this knowledge, but you gotta place it in your system, how you work, right? But it is about, you know, telling a person, okay, now you go try it. You go do it. See how it works. Come back and report, right? How did it work? You know, what did you find that was challenging? What was rewarding, right? Where did you excel? Where did you feel like, oh, that was clunky, right? Be able to examine and look at that and then tweak it. That's what we do. We're always kind of tweaking it to make it better. And I think that, you know, that's what I've done with my life is I've taken the books, and I read a lot. And, you know, I'm a big promoter of reading. But I've taken that knowledge, I like engulf knowledge like that, and then I use it to how it fits for my character, for my unique thumbprint, you know? And I began to see the changes that I need or desire, right? So yeah, that's how I write, that's how I'll always write. I know I'll probably write about 28 books in my lifetime. Why I've picked 28, because that's my birthday number, 328. Listen, squirrel moment. It's not me if we don't have a squirrel moment. And I just turned 50 on 328, so the big 5-0, right? Thank you. Yes, I know. Listen, and so as I think about those other books, I always think, because as a leader, it is my job to say, hey, now go do, right? And trust the seed that I've planted in you will come up when it's time, right? Your job is to water and give it, you know, the ability to grow and bear fruit. So I am super excited about the book that's forthcoming for the girls, and continuing to give people, you know, real actionable things they can do. But yeah, you're right, most definitely, because it can be hard to connect the dots, right? But I, again, tell my students, you know, I want you to go within to be what works for you. I always give the example, I had a student who, she would come to me, and this was over at Sierra, and she's like, Professor, I love the class. Like, this is like my favorite class. It is so much fun, but I'm not doing well on my test. And she was like, I just don't know what I need to do. And I was like, you sing, right? And she was like, okay, weird, how do you know that? And I was like, I know things, right? I'm gifted, I'm special. Some of you already know that, I'm gifted and special. And I was like, sing your note cards. You sing. So let's put it in the element that works in your system. Sing your note cards. And she started to sing her note cards, and what happened to her test scores? Boom, through the roof, right? I told her, she was like, I cannot believe a simple little turn, just one move, dramatically changed. I had another student, I loved him, but he did not do well, but he loved my class. He followed me from one class to the next. I said, okay, this class, we're getting it, because I hadn't figured out what it is. But he used to doodle all the time, and he was a glass blower, right? So he had a very creative spirit. So I said, listen, take the study guide. All I want you to do is take the study guide and doodle as you kind of look at the words and definitions. Just doodle. What do you think happened to the test scores? They went up. And he was like, wow, Professor. He was like, I was like, yeah. And as you know, I'm a professor that tries to reach you where you're at. I gather the way you learn. I try to examine the psychology behind you, right? I have a good, you know, beat on my classes. I definitely know the pulse. I learn my students, because it is my job to be able to deliver in such a way that I reach you. It's not my job for you to sit here and just gawk at my knowledge. And I think that that's what we see out there. That these professors just stand up and I know that's one of your questions on here, a little bit down, but it's like, that's what they're doing. They're just trying to be glorified humans. Not my role. My role is to glorify you, to lift you up, right? How do I do that? Well, I figure out how you work, and then I present to you. But also, like we were talking about, you know, I will push you. I will be like, I will be on your ass, and you'll be like, wow, she really is on me.
You roasted me in class. I see rest a lot of people, and I like that.
I do. But you'll be like, dang. They'll be like, my students be like, we love that you really just call people out. I'll be like, yes, I will call you out, and it's because I care, and it's because I work my ass off, and I say that in my information in the beginning, like I'm here, and I know you may not really get it right at first because you're so used to it not being what it should be, that it takes, sometimes students a minute. Some students are like, yep, and then they've heard or they've had, so that they know, like, she's the real deal, right? But some have to get, accustomed to it. But once they lock in, they're like, oh yeah, she's here. And students always say that with my class, one of the biggest things is the attendance. And I take attendance, but students come irregardless. It's the class that they come to, despite they'll miss their other ones, but they are not missing my class. It's because they're actually getting something valuable, not because they're signing a paper for their name. That is not it, right?
I'll feel bad if I missed their class. I probably missed something interesting or fun or something like that. I really did. So I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. You have a really good class, and I think that's what you stand out definitely as a professor.
Thank you.
Of course. And some of my friends have also said the same thing. So, different majors, different. Do you normally teach business classes or do you teach other classes?
No, I teach business and business comm, but when I opened up to business comm outside of business ethics, because ethics and society has always been my core class here at Sun State. And then when I opened up to business comm, I got a lot more degrees, and I got a lot more younger, like either just entered or second semester, right, students. So that was a different perspective as well, getting and a larger crew. I mean, I have 55. Huge class, right? Where I was only used to my small 30, but I had 40, probably about 40. At the junior colleges. I can remember my smallest crew ever was at Sierra Grass Valley campus, and I had about, I ended up having like double digits. It was like 10 or something, and they're like, yeah, that's about average, right? By the next semester, I had doubled to 20 because the word had got out that I was teaching on campus and that you had to come to my class, and they were like, yo, we have never seen this type of enrollment before. Like, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, well, I don't know. I scroll moments. I mean, I crack jokes. I get lost. Like, I don't know. I sit on the floor. Like, I don't know. Like, I just, and they're like, wow, whatever you're doing. And then that's where I was awarded part-time faculty of the year at that campus. And they were like, and then I tripled it again. Then I had another one. And they were like, wow, something is really happening here because people are coming. So I'm used to a nice gamut and holding the energy. I mean, now I'm up to holding the energy of, like 150, right? And so the big classes, but yeah, different. I've had all kinds of different degrees, especially with that business comm, because it's kind of like a general one that you need. So it's a popular one, yeah.
I want to get into your teaching style because I think it's really unique. But first I want to ask you something I ask every guest that comes on.
Yeah.
What do you think is the strongest force in the universe?
I loved that was a question because I am a very faith-driven person, and when people hear me speak, if they don't know God, they'll hear good, right? But if they know God, they're going to hear the word of God come out my mouth because it is written on my heart, right? So I am a believer of Jesus Christ and a follower of Jesus Christ. I believe very much in God and the Trinity, and I was raised Mormon, ironically enough. I left Mormonism when I was like 16 years of age. It was very hypocritical, and it was very, it was just not what I believed, and I was seeing things that I didn't believe were right, and I was like, oh well, I'm going to hell, like, please don't be alone, right? But God was always with me. Christ was always with me and walked with me, and as I grew, I finally found like a non-denominational church, and I began attending that, and I was like, oh wow, this is different, right? Like this is it, right? It's one God. It's like, right? So, and I always tell people there is a difference between God and the universe, and in our pop culture today, everybody wants to, commend the universe, but I'm going to draw this, right? This is a quarter-sized circle, right? So that's the universe, right? This paper is God. This table is God.
Dude, God is everything.
This room is God. This campus is God. I mean, that's the universe. If you want to let a quarter-size blessing, I don't. I want an infinite, ever expanding, never ending, always and forever blessing, right? Because I'm going to take my glove off one day, right? We wear a glove, we take it off, but I'm still going to have my hand, my spirit, right? And I'm devout to that, and I'm very respectful of all people, though, right? And I believe that it is my job to just represent, right? And to walk in the goodness and in the light of Christ and of God, and I'm very attuned to my life being an example, right? Not my mouth, because that could just be a gong, right? It could be nothing. It's how are you walking, you know, how are you treating people, right? What are you doing to enrich the lives of others? And so I do, and I just recently did a podcast on the difference between the universe and God, because I'm like, I think what has happened is man has, you know, been hurt by quote unquote God, but it's not God, it's man hurting man. And so you don't want to say the word God, you know, in our day and age, we are being silenced for stupidity. Just because we don't want to hurt anybody. So then you don't speak, and because it's, you know, you're afraid, but you can't. You have to live a bold life, right? But in a respectful way. You don't have to put people down. You don't have to dismiss them for their religion. You know, you should question nobody's faith. Like, you don't know what that, you don't know how they're living their life. God is the one who judges. Like, so I believe in that, and I believe when you can anchor into your faith, because it is faith, right? And that's why I love Christ so much. It's because there's the law, but the law is earning and deserving, right? But grace is believing and receiving, right? We mess up the law all the time. I messed it up traveling here, okay? I drive a Camaro, by the way, squirrel moment, listen. Anyways, everybody knows that part, right? So like, I messed the law. We can't fulfill the law, but grace, grace is sufficient, right? Grace is sufficient, and so, but it is about the combination of believing and receiving, and that is where people have the hardest part. They don't believe. They don't know how to really believe for eternal life, something that exists outside of time. But if you study quantum physics, it will help you even more. If you open your mind to the dimension of Einstein and his teachings about time, you'll be another step into revelation, right? So it is you getting knowledge. That's why we die, is because there's a lack of knowledge, that we perish from a lack of, but knowledge is plentiful, and being able to discern between what is out there, because there's obviously
too much.
Some stuff out there that's not, but then put a discerning, you decide, right? But if you're weak-minded, which you know I don't play with that, I push my students to think, and I push them to really think again. You know, my ethics students are always like, if she says to go deeper one more time in the paper, and you know, but then in the end they'll say, you know what, professor, this was my most recent comment. You got on my last nerve every time you came back with, go deeper, it's not enough, go deeper. But by the end, I realized what you were doing, and now I think so much more deeper than I ever did before, and it's because you pushed me. It's because you kept saying, and I just want you to know how annoyed I was by you. And I was like, I told the class, I was like, my favorite comment was that somebody was annoyed by me because I pushed them to think. Because if you don't think for yourself, somebody's gonna think for you, right? Which is why you shouldn't have any problem looking at all knowledge, quote unquote knowledge, and dissecting it to find where truth is. Because we live in the knowledge of good and evil, so you're gonna find both, right? So it's important, and I think that, you know, I believe that as you anchor into your faith, as you anchor into deepening your knowledge, and you understand that the greatest force that there is the force that created, right? And what I was studying today, because I'm always studying the word, is that wisdom was always there. Wisdom and the infinite God are tied in one. Wisdom was before the sea, wisdom was before the land, wisdom was, it was together. And so the pursuit, because one of your other questions in here is about, you know, kind of financial things versus values, or that was one of the questions, because I was reading all the questions too, by the way, that were coming through.
That's a pretty good one.
Story, yeah. They had some great ones. I love them. I was like, wow, look at all these questions really coming through, how amazing. But you know, it's that you anchor into that truth. You anchor into knowing that there is this God that loves us, and that's just it. Like, there's nothing, and nothing means nothing that separates us from the love of God, period. So that is my belief. It's
a very like personal relationship.
It is.
But something you said about like how people are afraid to speak up. Like I feel like in society, they make it very non-personal and very societal. And I think that's like dissolution of knowledge, wisdom, all that. And like school was something that also kind of it's part of society. It perpetuates society's ideas, right? So like, how long have you been teaching for?
I've been teaching since 2015. That's when I did my internship with Los Reyes. So so almost 10 years.
Have you noticed like, what was your opinion on school before you started teaching, like when you were in it as a student and then as a teacher?
So, very good question too. So I'm again a double alum here at Sac State. I did my bachelor's here. I also am, I'm a complete product of the region. I went to City College. I did my associates there, but I was all art, okay? So there's the BS, which is Bachelor of Science, and then the BA, Bachelor of Art, right? So I was going to school to be an art teacher, photography. I talk smack real well, so I wanted to be with the high schoolers, right? That's where I thought I was going. And so I was doing, and I'm an artist at just, by nature, right? By character. And so I began my journey doing art and photography. I started a small photography business, and I loved my art professors. Because creative, right? It's like, you're just free to do. So I loved all of them. What was interesting is I have a mild form of dyslexia, and I was kind of just pushed through, right? Nobody caught it until I got to Sac State, and I had a professor, and she caught it, and she said, "Hey, you have dyslexia, right?" And I was like,
I should have printed these words a little bigger.
Yeah. No, it's okay, right? I'm just hiding my face, right? Like, oh my gosh, like, yeah, I do, And she said, "No, here, let me show you. I'm gonna help you." And one of my students asked, because how I say you can ask me a question, maybe a comment. They were like, did you have a professor that was just as impactful as you are to us while you were going here? And I would say that one professor for sure stands out to me. And of course, I can't remember her name right now, but I can almost walk to her office, however, right? And it's over near the art. And she would just show me, and from that I became less scared of reading. I'm an avid reader today, right? And I'm a writer. I had another professor at through my MBA program here through Sac State who said, "You're going to be a grant writer," and I was like, "Oh no, I don't spell very well. I'm kind of I got a mild form of dyslexia." He was like, "That doesn't matter. You're brilliant. You don't really see that right now, but here, let me help you." It was like, "You just need an editor," and today I have an amazing editor, right? Who, if I write something that needs to go somewhere, I deliver to her. I have another one that helps me, right? That is like a baseline one, and then I have a more advanced one, right? That helps me because I am an amazing writer, right? So I saw that perspective, and then I knew I've always wanted to teach. When I realized I wasn't going to go into high school because my business was doing so well, I got my business, was a welfare mom, changed my life, right? I ran with that business and it just exploded. And but I wanted to teach. I always wanted to go back and earn my master's so I could teach and be a professor. And that was the pursuit. I was like, I'm after it. So I got in it, and then I was like, oh shit, this is so broken. Like, are you kidding me right now? And I love it. What I realized, so at first I was chasing it to become a full-time faculty, and then I realized, oh no, that's capped. You can't cap me, right? So when I realized, oh, there's a cap to this, I'm only gonna make so much money. Well, I'm an entrepreneur, so as an entrepreneur, we don't have a cap, right? The sky's not even the limit, right? Like, it's just not, period. Like, I cannot be limited. So I was like, well, that's not gonna work, so I'll just stay a part-timer because I love it so much. So I don't really make that much money, and I don't care. And I actually, you guys got the jungle. Like, I buy those things for you guys. Like, I buy gifts at the end of the year for my.
I still have yours.
Yeah, right. Like they do. They love them. Like, listen. And so I invest in, right. I invest in my stars, and put a lot of effort in. And it's not. I mean, if I was to break down the hours I put in, it would probably be maybe $5 an hour at that point, right? Like, that's just how much I work. But it doesn't matter to me, because what's happening over here in the vast sea of my stars, that you can't put a price on that, right? So I've learned that the best thing for me to do is continue to be a disruptor in here, and I know I'm accountable. and my students are meant to be in my class, like it's a secondary thing. Like you're there for your, points, and you're there for your grade, and you're there because you gotta mark this for the degree, but you also came because I'm gonna go yoke your soul out and replace it back in and mend it back up. Like that's why you're in my class.
Yeah.
And people realize that very quickly. They're like, oh, like this is a whole new, right? Because I believe that they are called to me and I am called to them. I am their manifestation made real, right? I'm your manifestation made real. And you are mine too. And I can remember one time, because again, I'm a prayer warrior. I love God. I was praying as I was working on, getting my degree and being a professor, which was a journey. It was a long journey to finally get there after because I graduated in 2010 and I worked 5 years. I was on the path to beating doors. Like, are you gonna put in 5 years to get to that goal? Like, you've gotta be that gritty, right? And I remember that I was like, okay, Lord, I know my students are out there, but they're probably in kindergarten. That's what I would pray. And then when I first, this is like way back in the, and so when I realized that my name was being changed, to professor, I was getting this new name. And one time in like one of my classes, I was like, okay, who was in kindergarten at this time? I was like, raise your hand, and like sprinkle of hands raised up, right? And I was like, yep, there they are. But there they are, right?
Just
like
time.
Just time. And you will intersect when you're supposed to, right? The intersections of our lives are so important. And those are the destiny points. Those are the milestones that have momentum for our lives and catapult us in. And so, I'm a very big believer, and that's in everything I do, in the workshops, in the girls I serve, in the homeless I serve. Like, I am called and destined to those people, and they are accountable under my name in some fashion. So, I always say that when I cross over and I enter into the realm, I'm going to see all these crowns of swords, which is the souls I were able to touch. And again, there's no price tag. You can't.
I like that.
Can't put value on eternity's currency. You just can't.
That's how you live in God's faith.
Yes, 100%. And I do, and I'm and I have very strong faith. I have very radical faith. I have, people know me for my faith. They know me for being, one who like just really believes in the, and I'm even in that, I'm like, we could believe even greater, right? I try to push my belief out even more, because when God says, I will knock your socks off, you will have greater than what you can even envision. I'm like, okay, let me try to push so we can get it, right? But no matter how far you push, he'll still beat you. He's still gonna have more.
Can't get everything.
That's the vastness, right? But it's, what is your mind able to open to? What is your heart able to receive? Like, where are you able to expand and breathe out, right? In your human shell. So
100%. You gotta treat everyone like an extension of yourself.
Yeah.
And like those who are fortunate enough to be able to like give, that's the best feeling that you can get.
Oh my God, I love it. I'm a big giver. Yeah, I'm a huge giver. It's something, I was an enabling giver back in the day, and I give to people out of response for wanting to be loved. And I learned in my healing journey that is so far, you get used is what happens. And I was like, okay, God, but I have this like spirit of giving. What am I gonna do with this spirit of giving? Like, it's part of my DNA. And that's when God opened the window and showed me the homeless and was very strategic, and then it began to grow. And I'm like, oh my God, like, we just did huge outreach of like almost 500 hygiene bags that went to the street, right? Like, we did 1,000 lunches went to the street in December after I just had hip surgery, right? People were like, it's like a well-oiled machine. People were just coming through and just dropping, right? Because I had it so organized. And I was like, that's the impact, that when I look back, I did the equation. In the time I've been serving, I've served approximately probably 40,000 homeless in Sacramento over the last 21 years. About 40,000 of them.
Wow. Good job.
Yeah, it's amazing, right?
That's beautiful.
Yeah, and so I commend God more than anything. I give God the glory for that, and the ability for them to see him and not me. And that's what I really enjoy the most, is when they say things like, didn't you come last night and help me put my tent up? No, but Jesus did in the form of some human, and now here I am showing up, right? But it's that spirit, it's that aroma, that fragrance that we really, I told my pastor one day, I was like, do you ever think about how you smell to God? Because, there's an aroma that we lift to God. I was like, you're a pastor, so you might be okay, but you're still you, because we're all us. He's like, you're hilarious. I was like, I'm a very good time. Okay, first of all. I was like, but I think about that, and when we go out in servitude, right, we are lifting this fragrance. And, for me, I'm pure of heart. Like, I really do love people. I'm really that professor who loves you and cares about you. It does take people, at first to really be like, okay, she's just fronting. Or is she going to have this much energy all the way through? Yep, I'm going to have, and I'm going to keep showing up with that much energy because it's just in me, right? Because they're like, okay, but here's the thing, you guys can smell fake. Like, assholes. You know what I'm saying? Like,
pretentious, like
exactly.
All that.
Yeah, so, yeah.
Let's I want to talk about your teaching style. Because
Yeah.
you did one activity which I thought was very interesting. It was the animals.
The animals.
Yeah. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
I love the animals, and
Sure.
everybody loves the animals. And I just closed out. This is what was so cool, is I closed out with my Colorado crew, the agriculture and farmers markets food industry, right? I've been Zooming with them. I come once a month with them. They have like an incubator program and things like that, right? And the first thing I do is set them off with the animals, and all the way through. So I ask you at the end, what is the one thing you've learned? Right? What's the one thing you've learned? Right? What's the one thing you learned? The very first two comments was, I'm a chameleon, I'm a flamingo. And I was like, oh my God, from the very end. And we started last year with the trainings, right? And I called my contact there after, and I was like, hey, I thought it was so interesting that the animals, she was like, yeah, we were like, wow, the animals came all the way through from the beginning to the end. It is a signature of my trainings. I have it in all my workforce development. So I do a lot of contract work, a lot of workforce development, helping people get employed. And one of the things I did it. So I've never been big on assessments because I've taken them and they've like put me in a box, and I've been like, okay, I don't even believe in a box. So like, no, it doesn't fit. So I went and did training to be a speaker, and I met an amazing coach, Kendall Ficklin out of Atlanta. He's connected to E.T., the hip hop preacher, and who's one of the top motivational speakers in the world. And I took his program. He's amazing in business, amazing speaker, and he gave us the jungle, and I took it. And I was like mind blown because it gave you the 4 animals, and you all reside in those. And so I was like, yo, plus I'm very big on psychology. So the work I do in life with my trauma work, I study the brain, I study our nervous system, I study how we work, right? Society, I love sociology, I love anything about how we tick, right? And especially the mind and our conscious. So it reflects the psychology with the adaptable and the natural. And I was like, yo, and I realized, I was like, oh my God, I'm like this amazing lion, but it's like half when I show up, and you see me more as this flamingo, right? Which is, vibrant and talkative and all that. I said, but I'm really a lion. Like, what is that? And I realized, oh my God, that's my abuse. That's because I was so hurt and I hid my lion, because my lion, I mean, when I'm unhealed, I could rip your head off and not care. I mean, I told you guys that, right? Like, I'm vicious, right, as a lion. And I realized, oh my God. But from that, I was like, okay, how do I heal that? How do I change that? How do I grow that? And I began working with it, and then I began learning it more, and I was like, oh, this is it. Everybody needs this. And so you guys actually got to take it, and a couple of my other crews got to take it. But when I first started teaching it, I didn't actually have access to the reports because I hadn't bought into them yet. And so I would do it, but we wouldn't be able to. Well, one time I had my guy come all the way from Minnesota, and we did a whole allotment. And so that was my very first class in 2018. So I did my first ethics class of them, and then I took it out to Sierra. I took it to Sierra main campus. I took it to Grass Valley, and I was like, okay, the students have to have this. Like, they need this. Then I said, I'm going to start buying them. I'm going to start buying the assessments because I want to get you ready for the real world, right? When we talk about my teaching philosophy and my teaching style, it is that I'm preparing you for the real world, right? My students are like, my favorite saying is, can I be real with you? Because if I say that, truth is about to really drop outside of it already dropping, right? And so in that report, it builds you up. You can use the strength to build your resume. You can use it to build your cover letter, your bio. Like there's so much, but there's also ways to help you improve, right? And then I'm going to break it down and share with you what the lion looks like, what the flamingo looks like. But it makes it for such a fun, engaging class. And let me tell you, it is a signature training. People seek me out for it. I've had Riverside County come back to me like 3 times and they've done Riverside and San Bernardino counties. I'm super excited about taking it down to the South with me to be able to light the South up. And like I said, if I've done it with the tribe, so I've also been able to have the honor of teaching the Alberta American Indian community. I've done it with them a couple of times. I've done it with my workforce development work. I've done it with Santa Cruz. I've done it with, again, anything I'm gonna touch, I'm gonna pretty much give it to if I can implement it in, because it is that life-changing. And I'm a big person who, if I'm not gonna do it, I'm not gonna ask you to do it, right? I'm gonna get in the ground with you. I'm gonna show you the way. That's what a leader does, especially a leader who's building up more leaders. I don't care about followers, even though you can follow me on social media and I'll give you that information, squirrel moment. But it's more about building you up, like building you up to go out there. That to me is the greatest reward, and that's what that document is a tool for. And my students, even like this semester, they're like, wow, you talked about it, but we didn't realize like until we got it, and it's all the way through. So that's the jungle for the most part. It's the DISC is what it is. It's the DISC assessment, but it's presented as the 4 animals. And there is a book called Surrounded by Idiots, and that's based off of the DISC, which is an amazing book. There's another counter book to that, is Surrounded by Psychopaths, which is another counter of the 4 animals. And so they're amazing. They're by the originator of the DISC. The DISC to me is one of the best assessments on ground because it's the 4 dimensions. So you're not just one way, because the reality is we're not just always extroverted, we're not just always introverted. We might be heavy that, but some days we like to be extroverted, right? Some days we like to go and be introverted. I'm more of an extroverted person, but the reality is I'm very introverted. I work alone. I'm very much at my desk, right? I don't work with a lot of people. I go out, I serve, but when I come back in, right? And so it's learning that you're not just one square of a box like Myers-Briggs does. It's like it puts you in boxes, and no, there's another one out there that I haven't done, which is called Strength Finders, and I've heard that one is pretty amazing. But these are just archetypes, right? And I believe in this archetype the most, and putting it in the jungle makes it a very fun way, right?
Yeah, it was fun.
It relates.
Yeah. What were the 4 animals?
So it's the lion, which is the dominant one, the flamingo, which is the social community one, the chameleon, which is the adapter, who's very adaptive and calm, doesn't make decisions very well, and the turtle, who's very systematic and detailed, very slow, right? All the things that you would think of these animals, those are that is it. Those are them.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You said earlier about how, like, in your soul, you're the lion, but through your experiences, you kind of have that flamingo counterpart. So like you said, no one's one animal. So do you think it's true for everyone that one of them is kind of like your natural or your nature, and the other one's kind of like due to your nurture? So
I think that, like for me, I'm actually lion flamingo pretty neck, especially now neck to neck. So my flamingo is 99 now, and my lion is 99. So they kind of like, but my flamingo adaptable is a little bit lower. I think what it is that adaptability is rooted in your experience in life, where you naturally are a certain way. And I think the real you is in that natural color, but the way you've been conditioned to show up, whether in your family, right, the way you've been nurtured, maybe it hasn't been well, right? So your grade is going to be down, right? If you've been nurtured in a really good, healthy way, you might be more confident in your natural style, right? But if you haven't, which a lot of people haven't been nurtured properly, right? They've been nurtured by victims, so they're just victims of victims, then their gray is altered. And then in that gray is what speaks, and it attracts other altered versions. You know what I'm saying?
I totally see
So
it.
you have to build up in that real confidence in your true animal. And that's why I always tell my students is live in that color. Stop living in the gray. Stop showing up. But it's hard, you know. We adapt when we go to places.
Yeah.
When you get older, 50 now, right? Like you just go show up. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? It's just there. So
a lot of people still don't. It's tough. It's tough for people to feel, to have the space to, like put all their stuff out and look at it, you know. Like people are so busy with supporting like their family, themselves. And also you said like about like generational stuff, like that's the toughest because it's like they don't see anything wrong, right? Because they were told that this is how it is, and then they carry on, that's just how things are. It's really tough. Like, have you dealt with a lot of like generational trauma?
Oh,
like,
huge.
Families?
Now that's my whole story is coming from a deep poverty, abandonment, neglect, abuse, a huge line of it. It is not what it's there's a question you have to ask somebody, which is not what's wrong with you, but what happened to you, and more so what happened to your lineage. Like I've learned that I've been inserted into my lineage, right? I'm the chain breaker. I'm the one changing the course of direction, and I'm definitely doing it. But we have a DNA of trauma, everyone. Like it's proven. There's a book out that says it didn't start with you, right? And it shows our genetic patterns. So in our DNA, there's actually a painting. There was a painting at Crocker Art, and I'm embarrassing. Number one, you can't take me anywhere because I'm going to be all over the place. But we're in the middle, right? I know. So I love this, right? I was in the middle of the art gallery, and I saw this painting, and it had the DNA, and it had all this stuff, and I was like, oh my God, that's it.
Was that old man face? Like was the old man like?
No, I've seen that one.
That one's cool.
Yeah, okay. That one's very, very cool. That one is the essence of him lifting.
Think about like the pillars, like the really long paintings.
So yeah, it's a long one like this, but you see the DNA corals.
I take a picture
and
of that one.
the faces are in it, and like and I was like, oh my God, that's it. My children are so embarrassed. I was like, I want us to have a field trip. I need to bring everybody here on a field trip. And because it is truly in the genetics. So that's the big part of the work I do with trauma work is I study the brain, I study our nervous system, I study our genetics. We can rewire our brain, we can reset our genetics. It's hard work, but it's very possible. And I don't know if you remember in class the jackets, maybe that was a day you weren't there and you really missed something, but where I layered myself in all the jackets. So that the jackets are a signature teaching moment for me too, as I begin to put the jackets on, and I'm like, okay, here I am birthed, and then here I am, this is my parents, this is my grandparents, this is society, this is school, this is people around me, and I layer, and all of a sudden I'm like covered in jackets, right? I got one jacket that is like a newsprint, and I wrap it around. I was like, then you got this. I was like, that's what we are. That's what we look like when you really pull the veil back to see, is we are layers of conditioning. We have passed down a legacy of conditioning, and now is a time to pass down a legacy of empowerment, right? Your story is your story. It's not your parents. Now, granted, I love recipes. I love certain things we pass down. I am Palumbo through and through, right? I got a boxer spirit. I've got an entrepreneur spirit. I love baking my traditional stuff that my grandparents did, my grandmother, right? But there's some shit I'm leaving behind, right? There's some stuff I don't want to, and it has already come in, right? And my job is to try to completely prevent it from my children, and I do the best I can. But the thing is, my son, he's 29, so he's been with me longer, and so he's seen me very broken, very despair, but he saw me never give up. And I always say to him, you could never be with a woman who stays broken, because though you might attract some broken women, because there it is, right? There it appears. They cannot stay that way because you saw your mom overcome. See, that's the gift you give your children when you waken to getting yourself healed. Is that, it doesn't mean that stuff didn't happen. What it meant is I didn't stay there. I didn't stay in the despair. I didn't stay in the generational curse. I didn't stay in the legacy, right? conditioning, I got out of it.
Mm-hmm.
I pulled the jackets off, I pulled the jackets off, I pulled the jackets off, I pulled the jackets off.
Mm-hmm.
And I revealed the true essence of who God had made me, right? Because I'm made in the image of God, and God is within me, breathed life into my nostrils and alerted me to spirit life from earthly life, right? So in that, we have to walk in that. So it's something that I think about, especially with my son. My daughter, same thing. Like, she came in and she catapulted my healing process, and I began to really deeply heal. And now she sees me teach and preach about it, and then what does she do? She's at school teaching and preaching about it. My son too, he's just rich with wisdom because he's evolved with me, and I've been very open, and I continue to be very open with my story. And that, you talked about some people aren't there, and it's because they've not done the work, right? I'm 14 years of in-depth trauma therapy, and I continue to do the work, right? To allow me, it doesn't mean it's not triggering for me, it doesn't mean it's not hard, it doesn't mean I don't walk out of classrooms and cry my little heart out because there was one student in here that I lost, they think I'm full of shit or whatever because I'm sensitive, lying, right? It doesn't mean I don't get hurt, but I'm able to withstand that, right? I have the ability of a disruptor to have a shield. To hold up, or right, I can be able to bear those things, and you need that, and we need to do more of that. The unfortunate thing is I'm an anomaly, and so there's not a lot like me. We do see people becoming, but there are many in my generation who are going to die with the demons, right? I look at my parents and I love them dearly, but they're going to die with their demons, right? There's only so much they're going to do, and that to me is sad. But I know the work I do has allowed me to break that curse. And when I heal all the women behind me, and all the women ahead of me now have a chance. Yep. And what I believe most is that they have a story. My seed have their own story, right? My son's seed has their own story, right? I have to trust and believe that just like God took care of me, God's going to take care of my children. I don't have to overly mother, even though I do slightly, right? I don't, right? Right. I was in San Diego just the other day, Tuesday, signing my paperwork, and I clearly heard from God, and He was like, "Your son's going to be okay," right? Because as a mother, we worry about our children, right? And your son's going to be good. Alan's going to be okay, because he's not coming with us to San Diego, and we're a very tight family, right? And so I just heard clearly, and I was like, I trust you, Lord. I surrender everything. I just keep surrendering and knowing your will be done on earth as it is in heaven, right? And I believe my children have their own right to their stories. With my books, I write them in such a way that the next generation can take the book and run with the book, right? They can take it and reshape it, because we're always going to have business, right? That's what generational wealth looks like. It's not tangible, right? It's the fact that those books are 100% copyrighted under my name, which means I own the rights, which means my descendant owns the rights. And they can take those books, they can tell their own story, they can use the principles and build on them, but it's theirs now, and then they can sell. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. So when you start unlocking these things, you're just all of a sudden, you can't turn back, right? But I do believe that we do, and it's a big part of my work. It was one of the things I wanted to pursue, is just continued study in intergenerational trauma and the work. There's a lot of work being done there. Again, the book that is called It Didn't Start With You is an amazing book that talks about the DNA chain, but I'm living proof that it can be broken, it can be reworked, rewired. Yes, it takes a lot of work, but it can be done. Okay.
Yeah, that's beautiful. It's always tough, like from my experience, like from my family, everyone's like, now we've all become more aware of this as we've gotten older, like thankfully. And I feel like for myself, I've kind of always been in a weird space with I feel like I never really fit in, in family, society. And I think that's what led me to discover my own path. And that's why, that's where I got to this point of looking back and forward, things need to be changed, right? And I tried putting that out there, and thankfully it's been received by my close loved ones, and we all started healing together. And I don't know, it's not, like you said, it's not common, but you can, there's a saying, every gift is also a curse, right? you don't see it as a gift until you realize it's a gift. Until then, it's just a curse.
Yeah, suffering is necessary until it's no longer necessary.
Yeah.
And then you will see. And that's important. It's an important aspect, you know, from an entrepreneurial stance. It's important that you understand that you will suffer, and you will sacrifice, and sacrifice is necessary until it's no longer necessary, right? And suffering is, you know, you need to become accustomed to suffering. I do not negate any of my suffering. As inhumane, as disgusting, as horrific as it was, I do not negate not one single drop. And people are always like, you mean you wouldn't change anything? Not one. Because I wouldn't be here in this moment on this podcast and to the listeners right now impacting them with the ability that I have. Because it is because of that I stand before those as a pillar of strength, right? And it doesn't mean that you won't ever stop suffering either, because that's just not the reality either. Right? It's there. It's that you learn to manage it. You learn to cope differently, and that's a big piece, is learning your coping mechanisms and getting yourself through and things like that, which meditation is very powerful, breathing is very powerful, tapping, which I teach all my students tapping, right? We go there, and that's another thing my students, you know, from a teaching perspective, they're like, you teach us on trauma, and I was like, I absolutely do, because I know this room, every single person has something in it, and we don't talk about it enough, but it's affecting your business, it's affecting the way you do your grades, your work, right? It's affecting your relationship, you know, your anxiety, the tests you take. So let me teach you a couple of tools right now. How about we tap? How about we breathe? How about we show you these kind of things, you know? And then that helps them, and they're always like, I do tapping, and I'm like, I'm like, check, winning. Yeah.
Coping is, I don't know, like as a kid, for me, coping is video games. I played video games so much, all day, because I was like, oh, I suck at school, right when I got home from school, video games. And then like people my age nowadays, like coping is like drinking, like doing drugs, like it's so rampant. I feel like almost like 1 in every like 3 people I know like copes like that.
Yeah.
It's really
tough.
Their
trauma.
Yeah.
That's the root is trauma, and that's the thing that you have to get to, and there's some trauma roots there. You know, I was a marijuana smoker for a long time, and I wasn't much of a drinker because my dad was an alcoholic, and I saw that and didn't like it. But when I was introduced to weed, young, high school, it definitely changed my perspective, because I was like, oh, I can control this, and this is not bad. You know, the whole time became such a horrible addict. Was, you know, just unhealthy completely, but it took me getting to the work. But see what happens when you have trauma and it begins to ooze, you begin to feel it. And so in order to stop feeling it, you go to the drink. So I'm reading this amazing book, and everybody who knows me knows I love to give book recommendations, so I'm gonna give this all to you right now. It's called 10X is Easier Than 2 Times. And I want you guys to go and listen to that book. But, you know, he talks about in the book, when you realize drugs are the solution, not the problem. I was like, woo, that is mind-blowing.
Are the solution?
Yeah, and not the problem, then you'll be able to help cure it. Because the problem is the trauma, the root. That's the problem. The drugs are the solution for that person to their trauma. And when we are able to see it from that perspective versus that the drugs are the problem are the problem. The problem is that person was molested. The problem is that person was raped. The problem was that person was beaten. The problem was that person was verbally abused. That problem was that person was abandoned. That problem is that person was left alone at a very early age and not able to get nurtured. The problem is that parent bought that person everything but never showed him any emotional love, any nurturing, true nurturing, right? The problem is that person doesn't even know what dinner looks like at a table, right? That's the problem. And so because of that problem, the solution a person uses is the drugs, the alcohol, the sex, the gambling, the spending even, right? The workaholic is able to get away with that, but there's still a root there, right? Because we have to get to a point where we're not working so heavily and tearing our bodies down. And that took me a long time, because I was not only an addict to marijuana, I was an addict to working, and I had a good excuse. Like, I got families to support here, people work for me, which means their families are supported, their children go to school, right? Like, some of them go to college, like, I'm paying for people's livelihood, like, play with me again. I'm gonna be all in. But I learned that I was, tearing myself down, where today I'm a much wiser, right? And wisdom is so important. I said that earlier, but get wisdom, get it above anything, because it produces durable wealth and riches. Like durable, meaning it will last, right? And another, like the question of values versus financial gain, right? Time will destroy you doing anything unethically. So it's only a matter of time that will be pulled out, the table will be, and you'll be like, I'm exposed. So why even pursue that when you can pursue wisdom, and it gives you durable riches and wealth, lasting impact, right? And you don't skip a beat, you don't miss something because, So it's about you holding true to your morals and your values and what you believe in, the mission at hand, and keeping, right there with it. And so I think it's so important for people to get their healing and move past. It's okay to do things socially, and things like that, but I have enough energy to light a small city. I don't need anything, right? And so I was very grateful to come under the, come from out of the yoke of the cloud of smoke, right? And I'm very public with it. I tell my students, we have open conversations about it in class, especially my ethics class, because we talk about drugs in my class. And I tell them my story, and I tell them, I'm like, I teach the growers in Sacramento, I teach the cannabis, and I've taught them, but I also tell them when I teach them, there's an addict side to this. So you want to talk about the medicinal use, yeah, but when you wrap it in a cigar, it's no longer healthy for you, right? Smoking anything is no longer healthy. Yes, there are wonderful studies on the research-based side of it, and they do cure seizures and definitely some cancers and things like that, but that's the extract. So like if you're going to use the language, use all of it, precision of language, please, right? Like don't sugarcoat it, like
tinctures, like
bombs, like there's amazing stuff that really does work, but because the plant is a beautiful plant when you think about it, but when you take it and you bring it over here and you're using it, in more of a euphoric sense, right? But to the degree that you're also affecting your lungs, right? And you're tearing up your body. And it is, even though marijuana for sure, it's gonna bring you down, like any chemical. It's a chemical.
You overload, your brain gets used to it, then it starts,
and it messes with that frontal lobe of your brain for sure. And what's the problem is now is we just see younger and younger children, so their brain develops poorly, and that's there you go, now you get to be controlled even more. See, and all of that people don't understand is part of the big, I may or may not be a conspiracy theorist, but like it's all part of the big planning piece, right? Control, right? Controlled thought makes the most money. Poverty and oppression are very big business. Like when you awaken to the truth of that, you will begin to see life a little bit differently, because it is just a clown show, right? All the world's a stage, so pay attention carefully, right? Make sure you know what channel you're watching, because it's just a matrices all over the place, right? And so it's more about people really going to the root.
Seek wisdom,
completely seek wisdom.
Like, don't seek knowledge, attain knowledge, but like I said, I used to get a lot of knowledge and I still do the same things I was doing. Nothing changed my life. And then like the past 5 years is where I kind of started like living more. I started having more experiences. I started getting out of my comfort zone. Like I started doing things that made me uncomfortable. And then when I like look back on the day, I'd be like, oh, I read like read a long time ago or heard a long time ago applies to me to this now. And even when I act right in that situation, at least I had the knowledge to make me understand that I didn't, and then that's what created the wisdom.
Yes, beautiful. That was so beautifully said. That is facts, hands down. Like that's why I tell my students too, and those who I teach and speak to, like go experience life. Go to the ultra limits of your life, the very edge of what you know, and then jump, right? Just jump. You're either gonna step on something or you're gonna fly. Like there's two things, right? You might be a little drop when you fly, but it's good. You're gonna be okay, because you need to push yourself to the and go experience, because it is the experience that builds the wisdom. Like don't be afraid to try things. So many people are just so afraid of the unknown, and that's why they don't stop things too. Here's another book for everybody too, called Necessary Endings by Dr. Henry Cloud. Necessary Endings is an amazing book, and it just talks about how certain things need to end. That is the evolution of life, is there is endings and beginnings, right? The word tells us that there's a season for life, there's a season for death, there's a season for sorrow, there's a season for happiness. Like that's how there are, right? It's stop and go. Don't be afraid to end something. People stay in the most dysfunctional relationships that they have made functional. That's a big thing that people live in, is that we live in a very dysfunctional society, and we've called it functional. We've made it functional. That's wrong. And they are sitting there because they don't want to be alone. They don't want to stop it. They don't want to end it. They're afraid of what would be, because they're afraid of the unknown, when the unknown has never done anything to us. Not one thing. Has always been to the squarest. Has always had something remarkable in it if we just pushed, right? And so I love that I'm kind of, as a trailblazer, as a person who's kind of ahead of the carriage, you know, I've decided that I was going to make this move and end my era here in Sacramento after 26 years of serving and being a product. And I love Sacramento, and it's definitely been a great place, but I was like, I'm following the vision. I'm listening to God. That's what the dean asked me at Grossmont. He was like, why are you moving? Like, you have this amazing network and impact. I was like, if it's okay to be honest, like God told me we're going, and I'm following the vision. I'm believing in God. I have all faith. I don't know where I'm going to live. I don't know where I'm going to work. I don't know, but I know it's going to happen. And I'm just moving forward. I created the vision. I put it on my phone. It's right there on my phone, right? I created it, and I said I'm going to run with it, right? And it's because I'm anchored into the fact that I'm okay that this now season is done. And necessary endings bring new beginnings. So as I'm doing this and I'm making these connections, and all of a sudden this book appears, and I was like, okay, that's not a coincidence, because there isn't such thing, right? And I read it, and I was like, okay, people need to know this too. Like they need to know that you need to end it. And in business, you need to end some products that are wasting away your resources and your revenue. You need to end some services that no longer do you good, because they're not bringing in what you need. You need to end some relationships. That's for somebody out there. Somebody out there needs to go ahead and end that relationship.
You know who you are.
You know who you are. You need to end that relationship. It's not, that energy's pulling you down. You're being used. You're being taken advantage of, and you're just feeding a trauma wound. Trauma bond is all you have. But you can break that. You can break it. You can break it. I'm living witness, right? So it's important to have those necessary endings to bring your new beginnings. And this is life. We need to, when we normalize endings, we have greater success. Right? We will have greater success when we normalize endings. And I was thinking about how most recently, Red Lobster went out of business, right? They filed bankruptcy. They should have ended a long time ago.
Always makes me sad seeing those places.
Yeah, but they should have learned a long time ago something needed to end before it took them all the way to zero, right?
So painful.
Yeah, now there's still $1 billion company out there, which is very interesting, but they're filing bankruptcy because of their debt ratio that they have, right? And the things, but I was thinking, like, where along the way, like, if it was the endless shrimp, why did we not end the endless shrimp? Like, how did endless shrimp kill you?
Yeah.
Why did you not stop the endless shrimp? Why did you put a cap on it?
This ecosystem couldn't handle it. It was endless. Messy, yeah.
Right. Yeah. So.
Have you read The Alchemist?
I have read part of The Alchemist. I've heard, yes, a little bit. I do think I would love The Alchemist. I have been introduced to that book, and I think I've read part of that one. I've read a lot of books. I've currently got about 3 or 4 going right now, all over the place. And but I'll have to go and check. I think I do have that one somewhere too, and have read it. I love books. I can't encourage people enough. My students are always like, yeah, she's going to push you to read. Absolutely. Because it's there. If you want to know where something is, it's in a book or it's in a written thing. I told one of my partners, Jesse, who I buy my assessments from, I was like, look, Jesse, there are economic development plans for every city, every county, every state, right? And I said, they're out there, so I'm going to point you in the direction, because I'm not teaching you how to fish. I'm not going to give you fish, right? So I'm going to point you in the direction, and then you go see what you find. And he found it, and it was like 500 pages. And he was like, wow, it's 500 pages. And I was like, yeah, you got to read it. He was like, 500 pages? I was like, yeah. If you want to know what they're about to do over the next 10 years or the next 5 years, so you can find your spot in there. See, that's the problem. That's how they get you, because they make people
overloaded.
Yeah, well, they make people illiterate. They don't want you reading because the way that they have to produce information is written. Produce it, publish it, put it out there. We know you're not going to go read it, especially when we bulk it up.
Yeah.
Oh, I am. I'm going to read it, right? You see how they get away with it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So then you don't know. But this reader or the person that this corporation paid to go read, because they've got, you see how they do it? That's why you got to get game up on them. And you be like, okay, this is a lot, but I'm going to read it in like small batches. And I'm going to, maybe I'll skim through it. And if I see where there's some points that resonate, then I'm going to dive deeper. I'm going to read a little bit more, right? But we have to go and we have to read because that's where many treasures are found that just lay under the sea, right? In a chest.
The Alchemist is cool. I've always been a reader. I always read fiction books as a kid. And I always had trouble sleeping. I'd stay up till like 2 a.m. like as a middle schooler, like reading like fiction books.
Wow.
And once I got my first iPod, instead I switched over to the iPod. I regretted it at like 15, 16. Looking back, I wish I never got an iPod. But then, like, in my 18 to 20s, started reading self-help books, but then I got exhausted off of them because I was like, these are so boring. Just information, just same things being repeated. I'm like, I like fiction. Like, I like the story about magic. Like, I really love the mystical. That's why The Alchemist is cool, because it kind of combines, like, the mystical and, like, philosophy. It's kind of like self-help books in a fiction book. So, like, read, like, it's gonna be the other stuff, but read like what you like, cause then you're just gonna like enjoy it more, and then you're gonna like just absorb it more. Like, I really absorbed The Alchemist like fully, and those were the ideas that I thought about. But I know we don't have much time, so let's do the viewer questions.
Yeah.
Also, I want to talk about meditation. You mentioned it earlier.
Yeah, I have a whole podcast on that too.
Yeah, I just wanted to say like what I think about meditation. It definitely like helped me so much. Like I at some point able to meditate for hours, and like I talk to people a lot about meditation because there's a big misconception on how to do it like properly, I guess, and like how to get the most out of it. Like people think it's like don't think, but it's more focused on breathing. Thoughts are gonna come, but don't entertain the thoughts. Like let the thought trail off, and then focus back on your breathing. And then that's why I tell people like there's like higher, lower, and then deep. And when you first start in a session, you're gonna have like surface level thoughts keep coming up, random thoughts. Oh, what should I eat? Blah blah blah. And then as you keep doing it, you'll have some middle thoughts come up, and it's like, oh, those are interesting. Like sometimes it's something like important to you, but you still just let it go. And then like when you do it long enough, then you get like a golden nugget come out from like the deep. And then that's like the real benefit. It teaches you the practice of not hanging on to your thoughts and ideas because they're not you. They're just thoughts that come up.
Like clouds, they just pass by.
But then but the deep ones really help you. The thoughts about like yourself, traumas, things that you've locked away, and like I don't know. It's just really it's really beautiful. I don't do it anymore because I used to do it when I had a balcony in Davis. And I do it outside because I don't like doing it inside. I like feeling the air. But I haven't had a balcony in a while. And like, I guess I don't have the confidence to do it like
at a park or
at
somewhere?
a park, yeah. Because I feel like I'm gonna hear people, but like.
Oh, you zone it out. I've meditated at a park. When I was first introduced to meditation, my trainer he was like, Natasha, you should meditate. I said, you should close your face because I don't do meditation. I can't sit still to save my life. And he was like, no, he was like, why don't we do this? Why don't you try Insight Timer? So there's an amazing app called Insight Timer, and it's a meditation app and has guided meditations or just music, so you can go into meditate state. And he was like, try that and just do a 5-minute one. Can you just do a 5-minute one? I was like, I rolled my eyes. And I was like, okay, I'll try. And so I did it for the 5 minutes to the guide. I was like, okay, this is cool. And then I grew it, and now I deliver meditations, and they're so powerful and impactful that, people are just like, wow, what did I experience? A woman experienced her son from the afterlife came and visited her. One woman had, she told me, I've done money meditations, and one of them had, God told her, go look at your bank account, and the minute she got, I closed them out, she went, the money had just started appearing in her bank account. So like they have been intense. And I was like, I went from not being able, rolling my eyes at meditation to delivering them. So the longest I've been able to meditate is an hour. That was a sweet one. And that was the longest I've ever experienced. And I was like, wow, that was an amazingly long meditation. You know, there's people who believe you can walk around and meditate. It is a state of mind and consciousness and the depth of how you can release. And Muju, he's on YouTube. He's amazing. And he talks about meditation, and he talks a lot about how the clouds, right? The thoughts are just clouds. So they're just thoughts. Let them pass by. The thing about us is we capture the clouds, if you can capture a cloud, which is so funny, right? And we'd want to dance with them, we want to entertain them, we want to just be like, okay, tell me more. And you got to just let them go. You know, they're just clouds, just let them pass by, right? That's why the intrusive thoughts have to be let go as well. Those are the worst ones, right? That people struggle with. And so meditation is very powerful. It ignites your ability to be more productive. It gives you, its health benefits are phenomenal. And every night before my daughter and I go to bed, we put the meditation on, and that's how we go to sleep.
That's good.
Through it, yeah. I actually run it all through the night, so I'll wake up and then I'll push it again. I'll wake up and push it again. Wake up and push it again. So yes, on the meditation, absolutely. Go meditate.
Yeah.
Insight timer.
Guys.
Insight timer.
Insight timer. What was the YouTuber's name?
Muju. Yeah, Muju is his name. I'm gonna see if I can find you for him, because he's really deep too. He's East Indian, and he is his philosophies. He's so cool. Like the depths of him, I love Muju. Let me see if I'll go here, and it's Muju.
Oh, so did you say 30 or 40? You have to leave.
In about maybe 10 minutes or so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So Muju, Mooji, right here. He's just amazing. He's just amazing.
I like the titles.
Oh yeah, you would love him. He's
I think I've seen him on Instagram.
You probably had how to transcend strong emotions, right? Yeah, he is. He's pretty cool.
Okay, check him out, guys.
Yeah, check him out.
Right, on to the viewer questions.
Yes, viewer questions.
Ask some good questions.
We're gonna rapid fire them. Okay.
Yep. Okay. From Jaspreet. How will the job market for business majors be in the next 10 years?
It's going to be quite crazy with AI, everyone. So here's what I want you to look at is, even in the next 5, okay, AI is going to rapidly take over. You want to be versed on, number one, here's a couple of things about AI. Right now, there's going to be a lot of ethics behind it. How ethically moral is it? But is it culturally responsive? Right now, it is not. It is written by white men, and if we continue to let white men write the history, we're going to continue to see his story, right? And so it's so important that we see diversity, and this is nothing against white men, because they don't have to suffer from the past just like everybody else. They should have a voice too. However, we should not be trapped in that demographic for our creation. Do you understand? So we need diversity at the table. We need people of color at the table. We need women at the table. We need people who are going to step up and help AI be culturally responsive, because it's not going to be. It currently is not. It's currently being written. So remember, a human writes AI. Okay, AI has no power in itself. Okay, it is the coder, it is the writer who has the power in the AI. We are going to see our complete job market reshape. Your higher education is not doing you justice right now, which is why in my class it is something I push to create the real world. It is another reason why I realized why I'm moving to Southern California, because I'm going to be working and building entrepreneurship programs with an AI advancement around it, as well as teaching that component, because I need to get you prepared for the real world. It will be people who will master AI that will overtake. AI is not going to overtake. It's not going to take your jobs. It's going to be the people who master it. So that's what it's going to look like right there. You're going to see AI a lot more, probably even in the next 5 years. It's going to be very political. It's going to be very ethical, culturally responsive. You can see great things. Like, for example, you can see AI doing really wonderful things for like social measures, right? So say there's a food desert somewhere and people need access to food. Well, an AI device, for just an example, could connect you with farmers markets and free vendors and things like that. So that's how it can be used on a social measure. That's just one example, right? So there's going to be some social AI, and of course me as a big humanitarian, I'm very big, but it is going to change and evolve, and so that's what you're going to see there.
Good answer. All right, number 2, also from Jaspreet.
Mm-hmm.
What does the future look like in California when it comes to economically?
Yeah, California will continue to stay the leader and economically soar. You know, I think what's interesting is how we're going to play with our government and when it will crumble ultimately. We're about at 350 years. So governments crumble between 300 and 350 years, and that's just statistically speaking that we've seen over the lifespan of governments. And I think we're very close to crumbling, and when that happens, it's going to shift us. But you've got probably, I don't know, 50 years, you might have less than 50 years, but when that happens, we're going to see a complete shift. However, California stays advancement, and economically is going to continue to do well. But in that, it's still going to be a pricey state. But you have to learn how to fight for what you want to make, right? And go for those jobs. And it's going to be tied into AI for sure, advancement. There's going to be a huge base. Let me say this too about the AI with the 2. Stay connected to humans, because what's going to happen is we're going to begin to lose that human connection. It's already starting. And that's going to be a place that you're going to be able to stand out. So learning to have and teach people and connect with them from the human connection is never going to fail you, right? That's when I went to go network with my LinkedIn, I started following all these things in my wheelhouse in San Diego, and I saw a woman and I wrote her a non-AI generated message, and that's what got her attention. Anytime somebody comes into my messaging and they've got a standard AI written message, I don't even respond. I pay them no absolute attention, right? I literally am a human being, and I want to be talked to from a human being's perspective. And many people are like me. Now, some people will sit there in the auto-generated one, right? I'm not the one that's going to do that. But because I wrote her a true human message, she responded, we made a connection. That connection led me to the dean. That dean hired me. That built me into being now at Grossmont College. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The human connection is the most powerful of all. Okay.
So resumes, AI, cover letters, no AI. Write your own cover letters.
I would say, and I would even say, you can use AI as a tool to help you, but do not become dependent on it, because it will create lazy thinking. And when you have lazy thinking, you will forever be controlled.
Yeah.
So you could use it as a way to help you as a tool, but you should go in there and write it properly for sure.
Don't let it write your essays, guys. Come on. Be better than that.
We know that.
All right. What are some key factors that turn ideas into action in the finance world? From Annie.
Okay, so key factors is that you stay persistent, right? Your network is everything to you, right? And that's been my key to success, is my network, going around being able to network to people. But you have to stay persistent. There is suffering in entrepreneurship, like there is suffering in success. So if you want to be successful, it is a system. Learn your system, stay true to your system, edify your system, tweak your system, grow your system, never stop learning. But know that you're going to have to endure a little bit of suffering before you'll see some things come to life. But don't give up, right? Stay gritty, stay resilient. And then also, when it comes to finance, learn money, study money, understand the energy of money, understand what money really is. 96% of the money in the world is just air. Everybody blow out air. That's money. 4%. So 4% is tangible. You can touch it in your hand, right? But 96% is literally floating above our heads right now. We believe in it. So what do you believe about money? What were you taught about money? Because if you're going into the finance world, I want you to truly educate people on the reality of what money is. That's another generational curse that's been passed down, is poverty and a poor understanding of money, and what it can and what it. Money is my alliance, right? We work together. It's good money. You can call it bad if you want, but I'm a good person. I'll turn bad money into good money anytime. I don't dare say that money's bad, because money isn't. Money's neutral, right? Now there's bad business, and I don't want to deal with people with bad business, but money, I'll take any bad money and turn it into good, right? But babe, stay persistent and stay, on the pursuit. Before you know it, you'll be, an overnight success. 30 years in the making, and I'm at year 22.
Okay. Also from Annie. Interested in discussions of trade-offs between financial gains and morals/values.
Yeah, and Annie, this is kind of what I was talking about the whole time, is staying true to the wisdom. anchoring yourself in wisdom and seeking wisdom at all costs, because that's where the durable riches are. The element of time will get you, right? When you are going off of your value system, you can be a true character, one who has integrity and high values, and make a lot of money. Don't be I'm a very wealthy woman, right? And wealth isn't just financial gain either. So learn that too. Learn that it's not just monetary. Like, I have abundance in luxury. I have abundance in trips. I have abundance in freedom to walk the ocean, right? I have abundance too, right? But I've also learned money marketing. I've also learned the language of the wealthy. I've also learned stocks. I've also learned interest. I've also learned, and then I go and experience those things. And from those experiences, I know I'm not really big on stocks, which is why I have a small stock, right? But I'm big on money marketing, and I have a huge account there. You see what I'm saying? Like, I work with my system.
Yeah, I like that. Last question from Daraj.
Okay.
A student of yours.
Hey, get your life together. Oh, you already did. Okay, I'm proud of you.
My boy, what advice would you give to someone getting out of college and thrown into the real world?
Hey, just do it. Just get out there, represent, show yourself, true to your character and your natural abilities, right? Show up, be humble. Humility is, true leadership is in humility. And don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be eager, don't be afraid to learn more, right? Make sure that you kind of learn personalities, observe human behavior, right? Understand people from the perspective of their traumas and what they come to the table with, so that you're not thinking things are, personal attacks of you. Another good book, right, is The 4 Agreements, and reading that and learning, don't take anything personally, be impeccable with your word, right? It's so important that you realize nothing is really like because of you, right? Like, these people will just act the way that they do. So try not to take anything personally. Keep growing, ask questions, go out there and represent yourself. Don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to make a mistake, right? Don't be afraid to not get it right, right? And then when you do grow and you are like, you really are getting this thing, don't be afraid to step out and ask for a promotion or go for that next level, because it's there. Steps required, next level, but steps required. So if you start making those steps and you're standing at that next level, but you're afraid to walk through that door, what did you take all the steps for, right? And so I see a lot of people, they grow in their evolution, but they're so afraid to take that next level. They're so afraid to open the door. They don't have that confidence maybe all the way, but they're so talented, right? And the real world is going to be and is much different than college. That's the one thing when you asked about, the education system and everything, that's where I think we're doing a horrible job, and where we're going now is totally missing the mark, right? It's just not, which is why I'm more of a CT driven person, and have that ability to teach from a CT perspective, which is career technical education part, right? Yeah, and can I answer this one too that's on here? I know you had one more, but so Raj, I'm going to take one more. What lesson or saying have had a profound effect on your life? And I'm going to leave you with this quote. It's by Mother Teresa, and it's one that I always share. It's, what you spend years building can be destroyed overnight. Build it anyways, right? Build it anyways, she says. And the reason I love that quote so much is because I add in it, you never know what's left in the rubble. It could be a diamond in the rough, right? There's been things I've built and they have crumbled. My core business is a legal business, but it started as a predominant copy service, copying paper records. Well, if you all know, paper has dissolved, right? It is now electronic. And it didn't matter that I threw a temper tantrum. It didn't matter that I melted with tears drowning down my face, right? It didn't matter. They weren't going to bring paper back. So I had to watch this creation that I grew from half the state to, 5 states, from 6 locations to 30 locations. I had to watch it dissolve. But in the midst, this beautiful diamond was there, and it was me, and I was able to recreate myself. I stayed true to the journey. I stayed true to who I was. I grew in my knowledge, and I'm still in business today despite an industry that died, right? Because as Mother Teresa would say, what you spend years building could be destroyed overnight, but build anyways, because you never know what you're left in the rubble. Could be a diamond, which is you. And shine brightly, stars, shine brightly. It's been great to be with you today.
Recipe, Natasha Palumbo, thank you very much for coming on to the MI show. Thank you for everything you've done for Sacramento. And thank you for everything you will do, because I know you can do a lot.
Yes, and I'm
Mhm.
supposed to come back and guest speak for the Women's Business Club, Women in Business Club.
At Sac State?
Yes.
When is that?
So it'll be in the fall, and it'll be a Zoom because I'm going to be in SoCal.
Okay.
But we've already talked. I already came and spoke, and we were trying to get me back at the end of the semester, but it didn't work. But I definitely will be speaking Zoom to that. Sac State Stingers Up has my heart. I can't express how much I love Sac State and all of my students, and I'm so this is so fitting to have this podcast here on campus to close me out as I get ready for my new adventure. And thank you so much. I'm definitely gonna make sure you get all my contact information. Please make sure you guys connect with me and check out my podcast as well. I've got tons of stuff right now. I'm on a season break, but if you ever need, they're a little short in nature, so it's just that pop of energy, that little drop of wisdom to give you some juice and send you on your way. So make sure you do it and live this life, everyone. Dominate your dash. You understand? Dominate your dash. So thank you so
much. Thank you very much. I'll link everything.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
Thank you. Awesome.